You know that feeling, right? When your company's most important data is scattered everywhere? You've got HR info in one system, identity details in another, and all your IT assets tracked somewhere else entirely. It's like having puzzle pieces that just won't connect. Well, today we're going to talk about how to finally put that puzzle together inside your assets using a tool called OnLink. We're going to turn those lonely data points into a powerful, connected map of your entire organization.
So, think of this as opening up a builder's toolkit for your data. First, we'll talk about connecting your data world. Then we'll get hands-on with the tools, starting with the basics, text mapping. From there, we'll move on to linking things together with object mapping, and then tackle the tricky stuff with array mapping. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together to build a complete picture.
The big idea here is to make Jira assets your one single source of truth. But how do you get all that external information in there and make it make sense? That's exactly where OnLink steps in. It's the bridge that lets you map not just the data, but the relationships between the data. We're not just making boring lists, we're building a living graph where you can see precisely how an employee, their department, and their laptop are all connected.
Okay, every good toolkit needs a solid, reliable hammer, right? In our data mapping kit, that hammer is text mapping. This is your most basic, most straightforward tool. It's built for one clean job: taking a piece of data from your source and putting it directly into an attribute in Jira Assets. No drama, no complex logic, just a simple one-to-one transfer.
And the best part is just how simple it is. The syntax is literally map, then your destination attribute, an equal sign, and the name of the source field. That's it. So in this example, map first_name equals first name is just telling OnLink, hey, see that value in the first name field from my source? Go ahead and pop that right into the first_name attribute in Assets. Couldn't be easier.
So when do you reach for this tool? It's perfect for all that foundational data. You know, employee names, email addresses, serial numbers, anything that's a simple text field. It's your absolute go-to for any direct data point that doesn't need to be linked to anything else. This is how you build the basic identity of your assets.
All right, we've poured the foundation with our basic data. Now it's time to build the actual structure. This is where object mapping comes in, and it's where your data starts to become a really powerful, interconnected graph. We're not just moving data around anymore. We're creating meaningful connections. An employee isn't just a name, right? They belong to a department. This is the tool that lets us build that exact link.
Now let's look at how this works. The syntax looks a bit more complex, I know, but it's actually incredibly logical. Let's break down the example. Map department ref equals department slash ref ID equals $department ref. First, we're mapping to the department ref attribute. To find the right department, we tell it to look for an object of type department. So how does it find the specific one? Well, it uses the ref ID attribute on the department objects and matches it against the value coming from our source data, $department ref. So it's basically a lookup query that says, find me the department whose ref ID matches this value.
This is where the whole concept of a connected schema just comes alive. You use this for any scenario that needs a relationship, linking an employee to their department, assigning a laptop to a user, building out an entire org chart by linking employees to their managers. Seriously, anytime you need to say, this thing is related to that thing, object mapping is the tool for the job. So we've handled single data points and we've linked them together. But what happens when your data source gives you a list of things? You know, like an employee who has multiple devices, or data that's buried in a really complex, nested file. For that, you need to break out the power tools from our kit, array mapping. This is a whole set of specialized techniques for wrangling these more complex data structures. We're going to look at 4 different ways to handle these lists. We'll start with pulling data from a simple array, then see how to handle nested elements, then we'll dive into navigating really deep and complex data structures, and finally, I'll show you a super practical trick for when your lists are disguised as a single string of text. Okay, our first technique helps us pinpoint a specific value from inside an array. This example, map uuptime equals values.0 underscore where operating system / name equals uptime, might look a little cryptic, so let's just translate it. It's telling OnLink, I want you to map a value to my uptime attribute. To find it, Look through the source data for an object where the operating system/name is equal to uptime. Once you find that specific object, grab the value from its values.0 field. It's a really powerful way to filter a whole list and pull out the one exact piece of data you need.
Next up, what if you just need a value from the first available item in a list? The example here, map disk text equals size megabytes where storage/device equal any, handles this perfectly. It's mapping to our disk text attribute. The where clause tells it to look inside a storage array, and the key part is device equal any, which basically means just grab the first thing you find that's a device. From that first device, it pulls the size megabytes value. This is fantastic for when you don't need a specific item, just a representative value from a list.
And now for the heavy machinery, navigating really deeply nested data. This is where you see that JSON path prefix. Take a look at the example. The _where clause acts as our filter. It's digging through a complex structure to find an object where the primary indicator is true, so finding someone's primary job assignment. Once it's found that one correct object, the first part of the command tells OnLink exactly how to navigate within that object to extract the city name. This is how you pull a very specific needle out of a very large, messy haystack. And finally, a really practical tool for cleaning up messy data. Sometimes an API will give you what should be a list, but it's just a single chunk of text with items separated by a comma, or in this case, a tilde. This technique handles it automatically. The example says it all. It takes the source field, maps it to the destination attribute, and that special part, $array separator equals tilde, tells OnLink, hey, split this string into a proper list for me wherever you see a tilde. It is an absolute lifesaver. Okay, so we've seen all the individual tools. The hammer for simple text, the wrenches for linking objects, the power saws for cutting through arrays. Now, let's put the whole toolkit to work and see what we can actually build when we combine all of them to create one complete, meaningful profile.
And this is the payoff. After all that mapping, all that configuration, you get something like this. A simple, human-readable sentence that represents a whole web of connected data. This isn't just a random collection of fields anymore. This is intelligence. You know who he is, where he works, and what he has. It's actionable.
So how did we actually build that sentence? Let's look at the blueprint. The employee's name, John Smith, probably came from a simple text map. His sales department, that was linked using object mapping. And his MacBook Pro was picked out from a list of his assigned equipment using array mapping. We could even link to his manager using another object map. You see, each tool we just discussed played its part.
And that really is the key takeaway here. When you master these mapping tools, you transform all that siloed, disconnected data into a living, breathing graph of relationships right inside Jira. It stops being just data in a spreadsheet. It starts becoming a powerful engine for automation, for visualization, and for making smarter decisions across your entire company.
We've seen the tools and we've seen the incredible potential. So now the question is really for you. What's the very first connection, the one that's locked away right now in your separate systems, that you're going to bring to life in your asset schema? Thanks for joining this explainer.